Most people think of crappie fishing as a spring opportunity, and that's because they get harder to catch as the summer heats up. But with just a couple small adjustments, you can catch them all summer long, and I'm going to show you how to do it this week on the water. There's a lot of fish out here this morning. You know, these fish I'm fishing, these are the same fish that you were catching up on the shoreline earlier this year. And I think the reason a lot of people don't fish for midsummer crappies is because they just get harder to catch, because they're out in deeper water. And everybody fishes those same areas that they started the season on, and they don't catch them, and they just say, well, those crappies are gone or they're not biting and I can't find them. And actually, they're really easy to find. The whole key to finding them is just find the deepest part of the lake. Get out in that area, look at your graph, because what you're going to see is you're going to see fish suspended. And the reason these crappies do that is they're sight feeders. This guy runs around looking for something to eat. He doesn't necessarily live down on the bottom. He comes up in the water column and he suspends at this time of year. So what you want to do is just get out in those basin type areas, the deepest part of the lake, and throw out a lure that's only going to be about halfway down. And I'm going to talk a little bit as we go today about trolling, because that's the easiest way to fish these fish when they're suspended halfway down. Now, I don't care how deep a lake you have. They're always going to look for that deepest area. But one of the things I always look for is lakes that are about 20 feet in maximum depth or less. And here's why. It's easy to pinpoint these fish. You start getting into lakes that have 30, 40, 50 feet of water, and it's harder to figure out exactly where they are in the water column. So keep that in mind while you're picking a lake to go midsummer crappie fishing in. Got him. Yep, got him. You know, I was talking about trolling. What I'm actually doing out here is I'm right over the top of all these fish that are out in the basin, and I'm just trolling right over the top of them. And what that allows me to do, look at that one, that's a dandy right there. What that allows me to do is a couple things. One, I'm covering a lot of ground. And if I can cover a lot of ground, I'm gonna come across a lot of piles of fish like that one right there. The other thing it allows me to do is find active fish. And you can see what I'm fishing here. I'm fishing a Lindy little nipper, okay? And what that is just a simple hair jig, but now at this time of year, I've made a change. I'm bulking up a little bit because crappies like this, he's a predator, he's eating. So what I've done is I've bulked up because it's July now. The minnows in this lake have gotten a lot bigger. So instead of just using that hair jig that I was getting away with this spring when I was fishing these same fish on the shoreline, I'm now using a little yum teeny shad. And what that's allowing me to do is look a lot more like a minnow. And I'll tell you what, crappies love pink, keep that in mind. This is the electric chicken color, and I'll tell you what, this thing just catches crappies nonstop. But remember that, get out over the top of the fish and troll over them, be aggressive. Now, one of the things I want to point out too is I'm going 0.7 to 1.0 miles an hour. Here's the difference. Early in the morning, I'm gonna go a little bit slower because these fish are a little bit lethargic. So right now I'm going 0.7, but as we fish and stay at it today, I'm gonna need to speed up a little bit. Keep that in mind and you'll catch fish all day long. You know, today I chose to fish a lake with a basin that's only about 6.5 feet deep. And I'm out here in what most people would call pretty shallow water, but it's the deepest part of this lake. So I can get away with a 16th ounce jig. Look at that crappie. That's a great one right there. But now if I'm fishing out over deeper water, let's say I'm on a lake where I've got a basin that's 15 feet deep, and that's where I'm going to fish these suspended fish. I'm always going to start about halfway down, but there I'm probably going to go to about a 1/8 ounce jig. So just keep that in mind. You know, you can go to like a what's it jig. That'll do the same thing as what I'm doing here today, and you can do that with a little bit heavier weight. A lot of this is just a guessing game. I'm just casting it out behind the boat, and you know, I'm just trolling along. So I'm not exactly sure where in the water column it is, but you keep playing with jig sizes, and eventually you're going to contact fish like that one right there, and you're going to be able to just keep repeating it and catch them over and over. You know, the equipment you use for this makes a big difference, and I'll tell you why. These fish just have paper thin mouths, and you notice that I don't set the hook real hard on a crappie, especially when I'm trolling like this, because you got to remember, we're moving along at a pretty good clip. I'm going a mile an hour sometimes, 0.8, 0.7, but we're smoking right along. So the last thing you want to do is just pull it right out of his mouth. And if I set the hook hard, that's what'll happen. So what I'm actually doing is, all I do is when I feel that bite, I kind of go back just a little bit with the fish, and then I just kind of step forward and pull. And what allows me to get away with that and still get a good hook set is the rod that I'm using. It's got a really soft tip, and let me show it to you here. Throw that fish in the box. But this tip on this panfish rod makes the whole difference. If you look at that, it doesn't take much to make that tip just bend over like this. And what that allows me to do is be able to just feel that bite. It's very sensitive, and then just pull forward, and I'm going to get them every time, and I'm not going to pull it right out of their lip, because if you use too stiff a rod, that's what's going to happen. You're going to lose a lot of fish. That time. You know, the neat thing about the pattern we're on right now is it's solid now. This thing's gonna hold up all the way through fall. These fish are gonna sit out here on mid-lake stuff, and they're just gonna eat, and that's gonna make them real easy for you to come out here and catch them. The other thing that you gotta look at too is there's an algae bloom out here, and you know, this water's pretty green. Key to that is just use bright colors. Maybe come up a little bit higher in the water column. It doesn't take a lot to get around that, but one trick I want to show you, let me throw this guy in the live well. With all this algae bloom, every now and then you'll get some stuff slides down to your jig. So what I do is, out in front of the jig, I'm just running a slip knot. And the reason for that is anything that may slide down the line just gets caught on that knot, doesn't get down to the jig, and makes it so I continue to fish clean. That's a simple little trick that'll keep you catching more fish, because as soon as you get something on that jig, it's going to change it. All of a sudden those fish might not be as interested. So keep that one in mind when you're out on the water. Boy, I got to the truck, loaded up the boat, 99 degrees out here today. It's going to be like that all week. The weather forecast looks stable, which means good fishing, but it's going to be hot. So if you're going to be out on the water, make sure to bring water with you to drink so that you stay hydrated. The pattern I showed you today is going to hold all the way through the end of August. These crappies are going to suspend over the deepest water of the lake. So go find those areas, and then look about halfway down the water column. Start there and work your way either direction based on what you see on your graph, and troll for them. Don't throw the anchor in the bobbers. Cover ground. Throw a jig out and troll right through them, and you'll get your fish. For more current and up-to-date information, check back with us next week. I'm John Thielen. We'll catch you on the water.